New York, and on the new Hot 97 app. Ebro in the morning on Hot 97.
Ebro in the morning, Laura Stiles, Rosenberg. I want y'all to meet Desmond Meade. You live in Florida?
Yeah, Orlando, Florida.
Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
My name is Desmond Meade. I'm the executive director of Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. I'm the guy that actually came up with the idea of even having a ballot initiative that would restore voting rights to people with felony convictions. And so in November 2018, we won, against all odds. And over 1.4 million people in Florida now have the right to vote.
First of all,
that's
applaud
awesome.
that. Congratulations.
Yes, that's big.
Second of all, if you have a felony conviction in most states, do you know if you can still vote? I think in New York you can still vote.
You can vote,
but you can't vote while you're locked up.
You can't vote while you're locked up unless you live in Maine or Vermont. But now the problem with the other states, right, where people can vote, a lot of people with felony convictions automatically think that they can't vote, right? And that's problematic, man, but because they believe that once they have a felony conviction that they're barred for life. And that was only 4 states that used to do that. And that's Florida. It was Florida, Virginia, Kentucky, and Iowa. Right? But in other states, once you get out, if you're off probation, in some states you don't even have to be off probation, just as long as you're out of incarceration. You could actually register to vote and participate in elections.
So 1.4 million new people are able to vote in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
How did that how did those individuals participate when Andrew Gillum was running for governor? Had they already had that right yet?
Nah, they did not.
They didn't.
They
and
did not
Andrew
have
Gillum
that right.
still almost won.
And he still almost won, which, so here's the deal, right? When you talk about the 1.4 million, right, people who couldn't vote, when you look at that, when you look at Andrew Gillum losing by only 30,000 votes, when you look at congressional race decided by only about 15,000 votes, and then when you look at presidential races in Florida, historically decided by 100,000 votes, that 1.4 million, right, presents a real issue.
If you even get 1%, if you get 10%.
10%.
Now, do you know
ballgame.
now how many of those 1.4 million have registered to vote?
So now that's the issue that we're dealing with right now, right? So what Amendment 4 did was create that avenue. Because in Florida, prior to Amendment 4, once you was convicted of a felony, no matter how minor, right? So we had people who was convicted of driving with a suspended license, you have people that, if you release like the balloons in the air, right, in Florida, that's a 3rd-degree felony.
Wait,
right?
what?
If you release helium-filled balloons in the air, it's a 3rd-degree felony.
What?
Right? In the state of Florida.
That seems like a bit much.
I mean, it's Florida, so.
No, but if you trespass on a construction site, that's a felony. And I'm pretty sure it's probably a felony up here, right? But in Florida, you will lose your right to vote for life. For life. So for the rest of your life, you would never be able to vote unless the governor, right, decides to give you mercy through his clemency powers. So what Amendment 4 did was say, to hell with the governor or any politician deciding, what American citizen get to vote on, who don't get to vote, and who do get to vote. We created an alternative pathway for people with felony convictions to be able to vote without having to beg any kind of politician for that right.
And so getting the word out to get that bill passed and get people to vote on that, I'm sure had its complications, right?
Yeah, it did, but guess what? We threw down, right? So you got to remember something. We was talking about felons being able to vote in a state such like Florida, which is controversial in itself, in a political climate that we're in where there's so much hate, fear-mongering, and all kinds of stuff going on. And we were actually able to put a campaign together that didn't have any opposition. You would think that, like, Republicans would have, threw down against it and did some kind of Willie Horton-type ads to scare people into not voting, right? But none of that happened, and we was able to get people from all walks of life, from all political sides, to actually come together and vote for second chances.
Okay, so then what happened recently where the new governor tried to make it even more difficult for people who still owed fines or these other things?
So first, let me say this, man. Where other people see obstacles, we see opportunities, right? We could spend time talking about woe is me and how the system got us down and how we can't do this, right? But I'm a type of person that I look at what I can do and I look for like avenues of escape. So the governor, of course, like he weighed in When we did our campaign, it was non-political. So we kept it above partisan, back and forth. We kept it above racial and anxieties. But the minute the governor and politicians put their hands in it, then they drug it down in the mud, and now all of a sudden it's right back to being this partisan back and forth, right? Whereas blame to be put on both sides, right? And at the end of the day, we're like, man, the hell with that. You know what I'm saying? What we want to do is keep people above politics, because at the end of the day, we talking about real people's lives, and at the end of the day, we talking about the opportunity for people, especially black folks, people in the hood, people on the block, to really be able to actually grab or reclaim their power, right, and have a decision on, especially around criminal justice issues.
And especially around local politics.
Oh, definitely.
City council,
definitely,
planning,
yes.
voting for district attorneys, voting for
judges,
prosecutors.
voting for sheriffs.
Yes.
So in Florida, we vote for sheriffs, judges, prosecutors, clerk of courts. We vote for all of that, and we vote for governor. And so, one of the things that I tell folks, and it's true anywhere you go, is that people with felony convictions and their family members, we cover the gap. We cover the gap. And so this is what's going on in Florida is an amazing opportunity and amazing testing grounds to show how we, especially people from the streets, have more power than we thought we had, or have more power than people would like us to believe that we had, and how we can now really exercise that power and change a lot of conditions.
So that's why you don't want to go at the governor of Florida, because you don't want to get into the politics of playing sides.
Yeah, and we don't need to, because at the end of the day, no matter what they throw at us, right, we still have clear avenues of engaging. So when they, when it came out that, okay, some folks might have to pay fines and fees, at the time we was like, okay, out of the 1.4 million, only 500,000 have to pay fines and fees. 800,000 could go ahead and register. That's more than enough to cover the gap.
Let's not get caught up
there
on.
You go.
Right.
And so now the Florida Supreme Court issued an advisory opinion that now clouded that, right? But we still have more than enough to cover the gap, and we can use the courts, because we have legislation out there that allows us now to, I can get a whole bunch of folks and I can run them through the court system, no charge, get them before a judge, and the judge will go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to waive all those fines and fees. You could go ahead and register to vote. And we did that with John Legend in Miami.
Yeah, John told
me
he was real active down there with Amendment 4.
John is the truth, bro. Mm-hmm. And I wish more entertainers, especially in the hip-hop community, would be more like John, because they supposedly rep the streets more than John, but John is the one that's really repping the streets by the work that he's doing.
So do you know any of the artists from Florida? Because listen, this Hot 97, we broadcast primarily to New York City. I know our YouTube has a lot of reach, and people stream us all over the place, but we're not on a radio station in Florida.
Man, listen, we need help all over, because I'm going to tell you like this, right?
So Ricky Smiley has...
Bro, all over. Listen what I'm trying to tell you.
Yo, Ricky, you done an interview yet? What about the Breakfast Club?
Listen, we need help.
Yo, man,
all
Desmond's
over.
political. Yo, Breakfast Club, man. Y'all on in Florida, man.
They are on in Florida.
Because,
everyone
here's the
in Florida
deal,
should
right?
be...
I don't care where you at. At the end of the day, as Florida go, so does the rest of the country.
I mean,
Right?
facts.
I can't remember the last time I seen a person get to the White House without winning Florida. So no matter where you live at in this country, you should have a self-interest in making sure we get this thing right in Florida.
And this
because
goes back...
if Florida go down, we all going down.
And you don't have to be that old to remember what happened in 2000.
Yep, Bush
I
going.
mean, if let's say of your 1.4 million we're talking about, if 200,000 had been voting, my guess is they would have been voting Al Gore, and this country is completely different.
You don't even need that much. He
No.
only lost by 500 votes.
Yeah, it was nothing.
500 votes. And that year, they removed thousands of people off the roads that wasn't even convicted. Only because they had a name that sounded like or looked like the name of somebody that was
crazy is that?
convicted. So,
Insane.
And the voter suppression thing, by the way, in Florida, in New York, all over the country, Georgia, the voter suppression tactics that they use, you have to process that like, yo, why are they working so hard to keep you from voting?
Right.
It must be important.
There you go. So that's what we tell folks who talking about, well, my vote don't count. We're like, well, if it didn't count, they wouldn't be trying so hard to stop you from from voting, man. And let me tell you, though, but the other part to that is that it does impact lives, right? Right. So my situation, 2005, I'm standing in front of railroad tracks waiting on a train to come so I can jump in front of it. You know, when I was there, I was homeless. I was hooked on drugs. I was recently released from prison, unemployed. The only thing I owned was the clothes on my back. And I was ready to check out. And I waited there for that train forever, but it didn't come. And so eventually I crossed those tracks. I checked myself into drug treatment. And after completing drug treatment, I moved into a homeless shelter. While living at the homeless shelter, I decided to go back to school. So I went ahead and enrolled in Miami-Dade College in the paralegal program, ended up graduating at the top of my class. And then my professors encouraged me to pursue my education. So I went after a bachelor's.
And how old are you at this point?
Man, I was in my late 20s, man. So I was a spring chicken, really.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I went and got me a bachelor's in public safety management with, check this out, a concentration in criminal justice. And I picked that because I had a lot of experience getting arrested, going in front of judges. So I'm thinking that's going to help me in the class.
Right.
I ended up graduating with highest honors and getting accepted into law school. And in May of 2014, I graduated with a law degree from FIU College of Law.
Salute to you, bro.
Man,
That's
amazing. It is,
That's
right?
amazing.
But guess what? I still can't practice law because of the policies that Florida have that came out the Jim Crow era. So I lost my civil rights for life, right? And so that means I can't even sit for the bar, you know. And in 2016, my wife ran for office. I couldn't even vote for it. Now, the same year, prisoners in Puerto Rico was voting in the presidential preference. We got another one coming up. There's going to be prisoners in Puerto Rico voting there. There's going to be people in Maine and Vermont that's in jail that have the ability to vote. But in Florida, if you have a felony conviction, you can't vote. But Amendment 4 changed that now. Right. And so now we do have that opportunity, but we know that just being able to vote could impact lives in so many ways. And it's not just about choosing the candidate, right? It's about reclaiming power.
There it is. His name is Desmond Meade. Register to vote. Where do we tell people vote.org is where you can see if you're registered.
Absolutely.
Can you register at vote.org also?
I believe you can. It gives you all the information. And what about for people who want more information on Amendment 4? Where can they go?
Oh, man, they can hit us up. We got websites. We got texting program. Our website is FloridaRRC.com. Folks can hit us up there. We got a text program. Folks that want to especially those that want to help people pay fines and fees, because we started a fines and fees fund. We raised over $500,000.
That's great.
Folks can text fees to 826 to the number 82623. They could text fees to the number 82623, and they could donate. And folks that need help, because what we're doing, we're telling anyone in Florida, listen, if you got fines and fees or you're unsure if you can register to vote, hit us up. And, man, we got a crew of folks that's sitting, waiting to go ahead and engage with those individuals, and we'll either get them through the court system or we'll use money that we raise to help pay off their fines and fees. And they can text fines to 82623.
Yo, there you are. I got a picture of you.
There you
two
go.
other people.
82623.
Desmond, who are these two other individuals in this photo?
Oh, man, I think one of them is Angel.
It's
Angel
a woman?
Sanchez.
There's a woman and a man.
Let me see. Okay, now that is Jessica. She is one of our leaders, and actually she's on our board. Jessica's from New York.
Got it.
Right? And typical story that a lot of us, man, because a lot of times people look at a person with a felony conviction and be like, okay, they're a bad person, and don't understand it's the story behind that felony conviction.
Right.
You know, in the case of her, man, she was, young up here in New York in an abusive relationship, and the boyfriend made her transport some dope, and she got roped off.
Yeah.
And because of that, man, she's been struggling. She moved to Florida, trying to take care of an old man that had cancer, and she caught hell for a while. Neil, he's a dude that was in D.C. He got caught up in the lobbying scandal. He got knocked off. So we got people, man, from all walks of life, man, that there's a story behind us, right? And the thing is that we're not our worst mistake, especially in the past.
And then sometimes sometimes people's worst mistakes aren't the worst mistakes. You know what I mean?
Man, let me tell you.
There's differences.
I don't even look at my mistakes anymore as the worst mistakes. I look at them as, a process, right? Because, listen, last year I was named Time Magazine 100 most influential person in the world. Now, and I remember when I found out, I asked my wife, I said, is that the country? She said, nah, baby, the world. And my only response to her was, damn, it was more than 100 countries in the world. And so to think that me, a person, and when I was talking about I'm a drug addict, I was a crack addict, right? So for a crack addict who was suicidal, right, and went through all that to become the 100 most influential person in the world next to like Obama and the Pope and The Rock and all these cats, man. What it says is that the mistakes, so-called mistakes that we made in the past, don't have to hold us down forever.
Absolutely.
That we could take
That's
like
right.
Lauryn Hill said, take a negative and turn it into a positive. You know, and that's what
I
I'm
think
all
Biggie said
about,
that
man.
too.
Yep, and it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Thank you, man.
Baby.
Desmond Meade, man. Look him up.
Yeah.
FRRC. Thank you, man.